My name is Mark Hallenstein, and we've had a couple of changes to the speakers. So we'll start with Dwight, and then we'll go with me, and then Jared, and then Allison. So, and, top picture of the book.
Take that too much. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, hey, I'm Dwight Clark for all you all that don't know me because I don't recognize any faces out there today. It's the first presentation I've given in a while where I don't recognize anybody in the room. So I'm from Recycle Solar. I'm the director of compliance. I've been doing the compliance thing for a long time. And we're just having fun now. So we're here to talk about solar module recycling at utility scale. They told me a 15-minute presentation. My marketing department helped me in making my slides. And I have okay. Huh? First things first. You guys are all from electric utilities or?
Federal government.
Huh?
Federal government.
Federal government. That kind of thing. Solar module recycling is a new thing. Okay. But very first, right here is a QR code for anybody who wants it for a more detailed presentation. I knew all the information in here won't fit in a 15-minute PowerPoint. It'll be death by PowerPoint overload of bullets. So if you shoot the QR code, you can actually get what would be a 45-minute presentation with actual information. Because 15 is tough to fit anything into. So that all being said, does size matter? How many solar panels are on a utility scale solar farm? Anybody got any idea, or just a magnitude guess? 1,000?
10,000.
10,000? Do I hear 100,000? Okay. Do I hear 400,000? Do I hear over pushing 1 million on the regular? Those are more real numbers. Okay. I've done jobs where there was a ground fire outside of Lancaster, California, Southern California, on solar farms, right? There was a ground fire just burning the grass running through the desert out there. We got 50,000 solar panels from that one little fire. Okay, and it was like 20% of the solar farm got burned. Okay, so does size matter? Is my number one key question. When you're looking for a solar recycler, you want to make sure it's somebody who can handle the volumes a utility can send. Okay? I see, if you look up online, there's plenty of people selling from Asia packaged solar recycling plants. They operate at about 1 solar panel a minute during operation. Okay? It's about 400 a day if you do maintenance on the plant, 600 a day if you don't do maintenance on the plant. All right? Means about 150,000 solar panels a year, best case, if the plant doesn't break. Okay? Put that in the terms of my one little example of a ground fire was 50,000 panels. That pretty much overwhelms that size plant for more than a third of the year. So we designed our plant, and we want to put out there to people that it's in the best interest of the utility industry to look for people who can handle the volumes. Okay? And it could be just a number of recyclers too. But if somebody can only handle 150,000 panels a year, you might want to be careful. So size really does matter. Okay? Second key question. Are solar panels hazardous? Anybody?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody got to know?
State you're in.
Depends on what state you're in. I decline. I say no. In California, it's guaranteed. Okay. Why is it guaranteed in California? Well, that's the political answer that's popular in Texas, I'm sure. Okay. No, believe it or not, California says if you have total metals, copper, I'll use for an example, above 2,500 parts per million or milligrams per kilogram, it's hazardous waste. Guess what's on the back of a solar panel? It's about that long. Piece number 12 copper wire. 2 leads. It's real easy to hit 0.25% or 2,500 milligrams per kilogram that way. So yes, in California, it's almost hazardous every time just because it's total copper. But I've sampled probably about 1,600 different models of solar panels. Okay, for T-clef analysis. Using a water jet, doing very detailed, trying to get a representative sample. Everybody understands representative sample. We're all environmental professionals here. It's very hard to do because the solar panel is a layered together matrix. So we use a water jet, and we're very precise about it. And we're at about 46% end up popping for T-clef lead. Okay, that's just the results I see. That's my private database. Okay. We sample for clients all the time too. Anybody ever hear of a thin film solar panel or First Solar?
Yes.
Are they hazardous?
Yes.
And no. Depends on which model. I've actually sampled every model they have. And I've had some pass T-clef, many fail. Most of them fail on cadmium because T-clef standard is 10 times lower than lead. But really, there's only a few grams of cadmium per panel. But if you process even a non-hazardous for solar panel, you're probably going to end up with a hazardous secondary waste. Just by the nature of processing it, you remove all the aluminum, they take 20% of the weight out. Now it takes less cadmium to make it hazardous. So, the key question, are they hazardous waste? About half the time. And it's really state agnostic. It really depends on the technology. Most of the time, my experience, if it's more than about 5 years old, okay, about 5 to 7 years ago, the solar panel manufacturers started cutting back on the silver. It could be hazardous for silver or lead, most likely. Sometimes selenium, sometimes cadmium is thin film. Okay, but silver and lead on most of the market you see out there, regular polycrystalline and monocrystalline solar panels. Okay, lead most of the time. Silver, manufacturers, their whole goal is to cut down how much silver they put in. That cuts their manufacturing costs. But you take some of these ancient, like I just had a National Park Service job come across my desk for some solar panels manufactured in the early 80s. Those old round cells, looking really ancient. I did a quick analysis on them last week, and it looks like they're almost percent level silver. Just because all because like on integrated circuits on circuit boards, how they print silver, that's how they manufacture silver. It's very simple. So, just like in old circuit boards where they've been getting the silver out, they're doing the same thing. Like there's some new solar panels out there now that have no silver in them. Like if you have one manufactured by Maxion, not to purport that name in any way, shape, or form other than the fact, they haven't used silver in 7 years on any solar panels. They've effectively substituted copper, which kills them in California, but cuts their manufacturing costs. So, the age-old question, are they hazardous? Depends on how you sample it. I've literally had clients walk up and say, no, we just chipped a corner off and sent it off for T-clip. And I'm like, and you consider that to be a representative sample? That's nice. And you can do that. You're the generator, but I'm not going to accept that as your recycler. Now, luckily, we operate under the hazardous secondary materials rule, so I really don't care if it's hazardous or not. I just care that the generator properly discloses to us so that we can manage it appropriately. So, hopefully that makes sense. I'm flying through this. But here's the key matter that at least the utility clients I've worked with in the past, is, I deal with utilities all the time. Elimination of liability, right? That's what everybody's after. What do you guys do to eliminate liability when you're getting rid of waste? Make someone else's problem. How do you make it someone else's problem? Title it. So you sell it to me, or you ship it to me? You ever heard of Superfund? Anybody on a bill of lading under Superfund, it's joint and several liability. Okay, if you own that panel at one point in time, doesn't matter if I chuck it in a ravine. If you ship it to me, you could be liable. Anybody hear of the phantom pizza boxes back in the 80s and that kind of thing? I literally I've been an environmental consultant a long time. I had a client who, how Domino's used to print out that label that they would stick on the end of the pizza box? Literally, a landfill in California became a Superfund site. And they literally sent a letter to everybody they could find their name of any waste in that landfill. I had a client get a letter because they found a Domino's box. They happened to be a plating shop. Not the most environmentally friendly client out there. Okay, clean and nasty crap. But a Domino's box with their name on it was in there. Therefore, they got a potentially responsible party letter from EPA. And they had to spend about $70,000 defending, no, we only put regular trash into that landfill. Okay? Superfund is very specific with joint and several liability, and what that means is anybody involved at any point in that chain. Could be a shipper, could be a broker, could be a recycler, could be a lot of different people. It means they could be responsible. Are they going to come after you? They got to figure it out. And that sometimes gets challenging. But there are ways that utilities can defend against that. One is what's called the Superfund Recycling Equity Act, SREA. And what that is it came out after the Superfund rules saying, hey, anybody, if you do an appropriate level of due diligence, you can have that as a defense against getting roped into Superfund for your recycler doing something wrong. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be off the hook if you send PCB transformers to that recycler. But if you did the due diligence and said, hey, they have a process to manage these appropriately, it's not sham recycling, they're not doing speculative accumulation, and here's where they're managing their secondary waste, here's their throughputs, we've done some level of due diligence checking on them. You can have that as a defense against your liability. Also, under current Resource Conservation and Recovery Act rules, in most states, not every state's adopted it yet, in the 2018 definition of solid waste, there was a section for a transfer-based exclusion for hazardous secondary materials. What that rule basically says If someone is removing a valuable commodity and putting it back into a commodity stream, you could treat that as a recyclable waste stream, not count towards your hazardous waste, not ship it under a manifest. You just have to treat it as the analogous secondary material. So most solar panels have an aluminum frame made of alloy 6063 extruded aluminum. Today on the market, it's worth about 73 to 78 cents a pound, depending on what city you're selling. So just pulling that frame off, there's 75 cents. Right? It's about 15% of the weight. So we make tens of thousands of dollars a month on aluminum, just on our recycling facility. Let alone glass, let alone copper, let alone silver, let alone even silver. But just the aluminum frame. So there's a ton of recyclers out there who have taken that and said, hey, I'm going to pull these frames off. I'm recycling something valuable. Now I'm going to chuck the rest. Well, if you did that mass-based or appropriate representative sampling with the frame on, is it still valid once you pull the frame off? All my TCRP experts in here? No, you just change the mass fractions completely by about 15%. That's a big chunk sometimes. If you were really low, yeah, it probably might not hurt you. If you're pushing a boundary, it might destroy you. So just food for thought. And then how do you defend yourself as your liability as an owner? Always becomes the question. So, what are the ways that you can defend yourself as a liability? Again, in the handout on the QR code, and I will tell you that North Carolina, all right, a state I'm at odds with every once in a while as it is, but the state of North Carolina has done a very good job putting interpretations of the hazardous secondary material rule out there and templated some documents for generators to use to document the appropriate things to use that rule. So, it's a helpful tool. So check in the state of North Carolina technical guidance under their DEQ. Look for hazardous secondary materials. It can be very helpful if you're planning on using it to keep your regulatory compliance. Okay. Also, a ton of people are sending solar panels outside the country. Does the solar panel still work if I smash it with a bunch of hail and it looks like a shattered windshield? No? Do I have any guesses? It will still make electricity. Does it still work? Yes. It's going to work for a whole long time? Maybe not. A solar panel is built like a windshield. Okay? Where you have there's a layer in there called ethylene acetate. And it's a cross-linked polymer and has waste growth here. Ooh, uncontrolled polymerization. Well, no, they're doing controlled polymerization to make that sandwich. It's built very much like a windshield. The cracking of it allows moisture in, erodes the contacts. Eventually, it will have electrical fault. But there's people out there who are pouring lacquer on them and shipping them out to Africa. My competitors do it all the time. I see smashed solar panels going, loaded up by the container load, getting exported. As working. Can it produce an electric current? Yes. Is it going to work for a long time? Probably not. It's the right thing to do. I'll leave that up to you. So it becomes, again, liability. Do you want that going to, do you want, remember back in the early days of e-waste, right? They showed the kids on the riverbank melting down the circuit boards and the wires. I actually did 2 or 3 of those investigations. I've been to China a number of times looking for that. I had a client, which was a large school district in Southern California, that was really upset that their asset tax was higher. Not good PR, not their finest moment. But there you go. So these are all things that you want to take into account when you're looking at your liability, at least in my opinion. What other liability functions do you guys do? Worried about getting about your liability? Okay. Questions? They said 15 minutes. I tried to time it out. Go ahead.
So with regards to the services sector for the renewable energy industry,
Audit.
how do you folks engage with trade associations?
I made presentations to CETA a number of times. I did an RE Plus for 4 years running.
Are they
Yes and no. They don't necessarily like the reuse market because they're supported very heavily by solar manufacturers. Solar manufacturers don't like the idea that I'm going to take a bunch of. I've got clients out there right now. I just got a client who just literally took 100,000 panels off the rooftops of a large chain of grocery stores for a developer client. Right? All through California. Getting a bunch of Walgreens stores in Ohio for another developer client. All the panels were about 12 to 15 years old. They're not dead. They're not great. They're low wattage. But right now, 15 years ago, you bought a top-of-the-line solar panel. It had a rated label plate rating of somewhere between 200 and 250 watts. It was high-end. Same footprint today, 600 watts. So nobody in the U.S. wants that 250 watt panel. It doesn't have warranty, nothing. But I do actually have clients in Africa and the Middle East who are putting them up. You know, I can think of one client in Jordan that's putting them up on 2x4 frames that are similar, their size of a 2x4. Basically hanging them on the frames with a 12-volt battery and a charge controller and running a water pump because there's no infrastructure for electricity. And they're highly mobile. Two guys can pick it up and move it. So when the war rolls through, it's not that easy. And granted, we can only sell them for like $5. We can barely sell them for what the cost is to ship. So it's really more than a waste of disposal. Now, we do a ton of that, but we test everything that is going to go to that. So we have some assurance that, hey, it should work for 10 plus years. And we're not sending things that are with the shattered glass where we don't know how long, if at all, it's going to last. Does that somewhat answer your question?
It
Question? Sure.
When utilities build power plants, they're required to carry a decommissioning cost, and that's usually figured into the utility cost throughout the life of the project.
Yep.
Does anyone come to you and ask you to give them?
I do it all the time.
You get a decommissioning cost.
We help people with either estimating a potential salvage value of what their solar farm may be, or occasionally, as the engineer, I do utility decommissioning cost estimates. Because I also hold an A license in a number of states, and we do decommissioning projects. So I feel myself pretty confident estimating the cost. But what I will say is the permitting of utility sites. You go to permit a coal-fired power plant, they're going to want decommissioning, they're going to want close closure care of your ash ponds, all that happy stuff. The solar world has been seen as being green, much like the computer factories were all seen as being green, until they realized, oh wait, there's a lot of TC and TCA they're using to clean all these things, to make all these high-tech parts. So, the requirements for solar decommissioning cost estimates are kind of all over the place. And I don't know that anybody is really, part of my issue with it is I dealt with a number of cities and towns, or in the solar world, they call it authorities having jurisdiction. It's not like it's FERC regulated. It's in that mushy authorities having jurisdiction. They get us involved in closure cost estimating sometime to look at somebody's plan. I got one on my desk the other day, and literally they said, yeah, we're assuming it's going to be $50 a megawatt. I'm like, okay, $50 a kilowatt, I still don't believe. You know, 500 a kilowatt, I might start. Because we're doing rooftop solar on small commercial. Those are costing right now, when we do them, about 85 to 170 a kilowatt. Depends on the size of the installation. You've got some null value mobilization that costs you no matter what, just to get guys to the site. And we only have, 200 solar panels up there. It's going to be really expensive per piece. You have 2,000, it's probably going to be much cheaper. Utility scale, I've seen it be, it could be $50 a kilowatt if it's a monster job. But it all depends. Like if you go to, I just did a closure review for Rhode Island, and if the land was former agriculture, you have to rip to 4 feet deep afterwards. So all the underground conduits have to come out. You have to rip the whole site down for 48 inches below grade. Whereas you go in Illinois, there's 33 counties in Illinois, if I remember right. 21 of them, you have to rip to 3 feet deep. The other 12, you don't have to. You can leave the conduits abandoned in place. But then it goes back to your leaseholder agreements and whatever else. So it's very natural. It's not greenfield to greenfield. Like a utility power plant. I really wish it would make my life easier. Yes?
I did. So right now, PFAS is all the rage in the news.
I do PFAS sampling for a couple of clients.
Yeah, I just was curious if you've ever come across PFAS in testing.
I've only done it for 2 manufacturers so far that we've actually run the job. And that's just because we haven't had a water jet set up to do the mass, do a representative sample. Sure. The ethyl vinyl acetate, I think, at some point will make some PFAS. I mean, there's enough silicates and other, different polyethylenes in there that I think at some point it will degrade to that. I don't understand those degradations. Not a chemist, environmental engineer, not a chemist. So those degradation chains, I don't always understand. But I know the ethyl vinyl acetate will go vinyl acetate. And mimic dry cleaning will eventually watch it. So, but have I seen a bunch of people? No. I've done drinking water standards on leachability tests for clients. We outsource all that lab work. We just collect the samples. We're pretty basic. We just collect the samples. Just because we know how to use water jet and how solar panels are built. So I wish it was fancier, but it's not. But yeah, PFAS is all the rage. I haven't seen it become prevalent. I literally have seen non-detects on every sample.
Sorry, the follow-up question. You said it would degrade. That would occur like in a landfill after.
Or it could degrade in sunlight. Sure. I've seen the EPA and the back sheets degrade in yellow and change over time. California has made the assumption that, hey, you could test a solar panel, see if it's hazardous prior to installation. They say that's probably good for the next year or two.